Ladies and gentlemen, week 46, Raw Ball podcast. It is Davey. It is the Cap. Our two compadres are still on the road back from Casa de Cap in the wonderful Ozark Mountains where I live, heading back to the even larger, much larger Rocky Mountains where they live. So far, so good. Wish them a safe journey. Hope they're tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in today. Whoever you are, wherever you may be, however you may be receiving this transmission, we are grateful and thankful. This weekend we crossed 1,000 followers on the X Twitter, the Twitter X, the Elon Musk machine, call the platform whatever you will. Viewership has been up big time. So thank you to everyone who has been paying attention to us. I have no idea why you are, but hey, I am flattered. Thank you to Davey for all the hard work you've been doing behind the scenes ever since, pretty much ever since you joined our wonderful little group here. What a weekend, both in sports and in ethanol consumption.
Well, I can't speak to the latter. I do not partake in such things anymore.
I partook in too many of those things this weekend. I think I'm still.
Well, me not is for the betterment of the entirety of the Great White North. So yes.
So if this was like the Wild West, that'd be like the wanted poster on the post office with your picture, wanted $1,000 reward.
Quite possible, yes. And my blockage on the Twix would skyrocket most likely. So
hey, you gotta enjoy life's little victories wherever you can.
That's right.
God, there is so much to get into. We might as well start with the big burner, the big burning thing that came out. Was it Wednesday, Thursday? The Wall Street Journal has released court documents that essentially place WWE as a whole, more specifically at this point in time, Vincent K. McMahon, John Laurinaitis, a particular UFC star, and other unnamed executives, and what I am calling arguably the biggest fucking shit mess in the history of sports entertainment, pro wrestling. I cannot recall anything like this. I mean, yes, the wrestling business is famous for being rife with scandals, ne'er-do-wells, crooked promoters. You know, you read through the history of pro wrestling, there's all kind of chicanery that's gone on. This, to me, seems like this is like a holy shit of. This is like taking every possible thing, you know, scandal-wise that's happened in pro. I mean, this makes the Montreal screw job look like a hand job. This is insane. Davey has been covering this feverishly. He first brought it to our attention. Davey, I'm going to let you start with this, however you want to begin, but you know, give us the bullet points and whatever details you feel are pertinent and or appropriate for this platform.
Well, my take on this, and this is just how I view it from the information that we have to date, right? Vince being gone as swiftly as he was a must. They had to get him out of there. That was not. They would have lost sponsors, which Slim Jim threatened to pull out. They did go back for the Royal Rumble once it was announced that Vince was gone. That is one step in this. Like, there is a lot that has to be investigated in this, and it has to be done externally. An internal investigation is not going to do it because, unlike Paul on his presser media scrum Saturday, I did read the document.
Yes, as did I, or well, as everything that you sent to our chat. I read everything that you sent our way.
One thing that stood out to me was the inclusion of Stephanie McMahon's name.
Yes, which you hit on last night in our sidebar we had.
Now she was appointed to a special committee, as was
Mhm.
as was reported. Now this committee was to
When she was the interim, when Vince
yeah,
retired, she became the interim CEO and interim chairwoman.
right. So she would be an executive,
Yes,
right?
at the
There are
time of said investigation, the
right,
internal
and there are
probe.
unnamed executives in that filing, right? Stephanie McMahon, however, is specifically named here.
Are
Um,
they unnamed because of just
they'll probably just have to go through the legal process before those names could be released. Would be my guess.
okay?
But as it's listed here, and this is right from the court document. In this
Yes, this is all
capacity,
straight out of the court docs and the Wall Street Journal. We don't
yeah, no,
play
we don't.
favorites and
We don't
horse
fudge and make
hockey
them.
here at RAWBall. If we're talking about it, chances are it's coming from at least one, two, maybe even three reputable sources. Wall Street Journal, I think anyone would agree, is one of the top 3 to 5 newspapers, most reputable reporting newspapers in the United States.
Well, and what I'm going to read here, this is directly from the document
Fire
filed.
away.
So, in this capacity, Miss McMahon publicly affirmed her commitment to bring everything in her power to help the special committee complete its work and to implement its findings. She also declared the importance uh, of a safe and collaborative workplace. Um, Notwithstanding the public statement, the investigation was a sham. In November 2022, WWE uh, touted the exclusion of the special committee investigation into the misconduct. Yet the special committee never even bothered to interview Ms. Grant to request any documents, despite Ms. Grant stating that she would cooperate. They had information offered to them, that committee, that Stephanie McMahon was appointed to lead this investigation. So my first question is, why was that information that was readily available and ready to be offered not collected?
And I'll tell you exactly why, because that information would have been damning and detrimental to WWE, and it would have also been so to their prospective deal, because this TKO deal had to have art. You don't get a deal this big overnight. This has been something that they have been working on for a while. You don't get a $10 billion deal like this that just happens. Oh, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Uh, this had to have been in the works, and they, and by they, I mean the internal investigators, the C-level suite officers who were over the investigators. We don't know all of the names, but they knew
No,
if
no,
they,
the names are not released
yeah,
as of today. They're
had
not,
they
right?
taken this information that she was readily offering, that would have made their investigation not look so nice. Would have likely either postponed or killed the
Well,
TKO sale merger. Uh,
it would have had a massive ripple effect.
yeah,
And if you
I,
look at the
I
time frame
yeah,
on all of this, like when that committee was
hmm
put in place, right, that would have been 2022. Vince came back in December
correct.
of that year. In January, Stephanie McMahon resigned.
Yes.
So why did she? So the next question, it's like, okay, you
Well, she
didn't
was
collect the
already
information
gone. Correct. She wasn't on.
that was
She wasn't there when Vince was there. Vince left. She came in. Vince came back. She left,
yeah.
which
So
to me is very telling. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, that's essentially what I was going to say there, right? So it's all speculation at this point, right? But how many top executives are there that would conceivably be named in this, right? We know Stephanie McMahon is a top executive when she was there.
You know, Vince and Laurinaitis.
A chief operating officer, a COO, is a top executive.
Yes, anyone in
Right?
the C-level suite is going to likely be there. I think you have to, and this is just spitballing. We have no,
And
this is not documented, but you know
and
Pritchard.
and to clarify something here, I'm not headhunting anybody. Right?
No,
What I want is anybody that knew about what went on there, because this is a major thing. Like, this is human
yes,
sex trafficking, right? If anybody that knew and said nothing and kept it quiet and covered it up has to be held accountable. I don't care who you are.
this is not a civil matter. This is
Like,
going to be a criminal matter if
yeah,
this gets to court. So I think,
but that information has to, like, this has to be investigated, and all parties, you know, going forward. If you were involved in it and you covered it up and you hit it, you
well,
have
the
to
thing
go.
is, who would have, as I mentioned in our chat, it's kind of like Watergate. What did the president know and when did he know it? Um, Vince has always kept a very sort of close knit circle around himself. Maybe not the board, the company, whatever, but himself. We know Vince and Laurinaitis were named. Stephanie was named. If they
Vince
were named,
also Vince also has this "I'm invincible"
yes,
cloak
yeah.
that he thought he had.
Nick Khan is a possibility. Bruce Pritchard is a
Yeah.
possibility.
And anybody in a top executive role is
Paul
anybody.
is a possibility.
Paul, Paul is a possibility.
Yeah,
Right?
these are all people who were
You know,
in. I
and
mean,
and we're stressing
Vince's
the word,
right and left hands.
yeah, and we're stressing the word possibilities here,
Yes.
right? That's all they are at this stage. They're possibilities. We're not pointing, specifically you knew, because we don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, they're not talking about guys on the talent roster other than one that they didn't even name. However, when you look at the details, you can shorten that name down to arguably a handful of individuals at the very least. Uh, we know
And
who didn't
and it's not likely
show
you
up at
see
the
them,
Rumble. That's who's the betting favorite.
and
But
and it's not likely you see him again.
his absence from the Rumble is telling.
Yeah, because there
Uh,
was plans for him. Basically, the plans that they had for him
went to
have
Braun.
went to Braun, which is, from what happened last night, is smart. Braun is a guy in his mid-20s, and he is built for WWE. He's the poster child for a main roster top spot.
So let me play Al Pacino devil's advocate here. Worst case possible scenario. The three who've been named so far, and let's just say, sake of argument, Brock, Paul, Nick Khan, Pritchard, all
Well,
the names that,
and Nick and Pritchard would be speculative. Right?
yeah, let's
Johnny
say
Ace.
worst case scenario. Let's just say Vince and all of the people at the top. Like when this thing finishes up, everybody is named. What happens when you've got essentially the entire C-level suite and vice presidents like Pritchard? If you get all those people named,
If I was running it, you move them out and you put new people in. You do not have people
is
like
the
that
board going to
running.
clean house? Are they going
I
to
I would.
pick and
How
choose?
how would you have how would you leave someone in place, knowing, and once again, it's all speculative. How would you leave someone in place in the exact same position of power that they had, knowing full well that they covered all this up? Like, how could you do that,
Well, you
regardless
could
of how
you
good they
couldn't in
are
good
at the?
conscience.
No,
Um,
you know.
now,
So I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. This is not going to
yes.
be a quick. We're not going to
Well,
know
this
all
is
this.
this is in federal court, correct? This was filed in federal, or was it state in Connecticut? Was it federal court or
State in Connecticut, I believe.
state of? So it's in state. circuit court essentially at the moment, which with WWE being a publicly held company, uh, now criminal charges, that would be a state matter apart from, there's only a handful of federal crimes that could put this in federal court. And I mean, this is not like I mean, well, you could get mishandling of funds, but I mean, this could wind up in federal court under the Federal Trade Commission, the SEC. This could wind up just stay in state criminal court, state civil. I mean, there's there's a lot of corn to shuck.
It's gonna go on for a while. It's not, like I said, it's not gonna be a quick, tell us and
No,
tell us now, right? Not gonna happen. So just
no.
stay tuned and just follow the facts, people. Like,
Well, and
don't.
also you take this on top of the fact that right now I've been watching wrestling since 1995, since I was 8 years old. We're heading into WWE's, their corporate quarter. This is WrestleMania season, and you've got this going on, plus the fact that CM Punk is going to miss Mania. Seth Rollins is very injured. He's still a toss-up. Kevin
Kevin
Owens
Owens.
has a broken foot.
Yeah.
Brock is more than likely not going to be making an appearance.
No, he's effectively done. There's
You've
no
got,
upside to bringing him back anytime soon,
yeah,
and the guy's in his 40s.
yeah.
Great shape.
Charlotte is out
Charlotte,
for at least the next 7-8 months.
well, you won't see her till next fall, most
It is
likely.
going to be very. This is, and I'm speaking strictly from a wrestling point of view. This is a Booker's worst nightmare. You are
Mm,
2.5
Not good.
months away from your biggest show of the year, and you've got 5 top names on your roster that all of a sudden you can't use. So
Well, I mean,
I'm
we
very
well,
curious to see how they are going to put WrestleMania together this year, because people
how
that
well
they had plans for, they can't use them now.
how well can Paul pivot, given everything else that he got on his plate right now too? Like, he got a lot of,
I think,
you know,
and as I've
and
said
we've seen
before,
this before. Like, we've
I,
seen this
I'm a,
before in
you know,
AEW, right? CM Punk got hurt, right?
correct.
Omega got suspended. Matthew and Nicholas Jackson got suspended. Like, there was a lot going on there at that time. A lot of people that were in very prominent storylines going into a big period for them. They all either got hurt, suspended, this, that, and the other. And there was a few other too. I can't think of them off the top of my head. So these things happen. Wrestling is a contact sport, right?
Yes,
People are going to get
they
hurt.
do happen,
You know,
and I've been vocal as saying on many occasions I loved Paul as a worker. I thought he was a pretty lousy promo, but I thought he was a phenomenal worker, and he has impressed the hell out of me as a booker since he took over the reins.
this right
And
here is a perfect opportunity for them, right? With that many top guys out and hurt that are a little bit long in the tooth, some of them, right? To start
Rock and Punk
implementing,
for sure.
right? Like, to start implementing and inserting some of the younger talent that you have, which they should be doing more of on a regular basis. So when something like
Absolutely.
this does happen, then you have someone locked and ready to go who has built up enough credibility over a certain amount of time, where if you have to insert them, it's no big deal.
And they have time to do this. Honestly, it reminds me, the last time I can remember WWE going into something like this around WrestleMania season was 1997, because you had Shawn lose his smile. You had other guys on the roster who, were not in the best of health. You had it was just they were getting their asses handed to them by WCW. And WrestleMania 13, which when people look back at WrestleMania 13, everyone remembers Brett and Austin, the submission match. Every other match on that card just gets absolutely shat upon. So, but then a year later, WrestleMania 14, you get the birth of Austin. You get Taker Kane the first time. You get, uh, you know, the legitimate ushering in of the Attitude Era. So
No.
this to me is going to be one of those telling WrestleManias because it's WWE, it's WrestleMania. That's the big show, and that tends to that's the rudder that steers the ship uh, for the most
Well,
part.
and one other thing that may tie into this too, right?
Go ahead.
Because Jordan Grace, for those that are unfamiliar with her, she's the TNA Women's Knockouts Champion.
Yes,
She is in North America a top tier women's wrestler. I can't stress top tier enough, right?
she's
So
as good as the top
she is.
3 to 5 girls that WWE has. As
She
good,
is.
if not better, than some of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she is. Like she's right up there. Um, but where they're going to have to start implementing some younger people, and they should. Like you can't be running, like Finn and Bobby and Punk and like these guys are mid 40s. AJ's closing in on 50,
Yeah.
and then you have part timers. You got Roman. Roman rarely defends and does anything of note in the ring as far as matches go. Logan Paul had his first match at the Royal Rumble in 85 days. So there's two
Against
part
the guy with a
timers you
broken
have
foot, who is normally
against the guy.
a great performer, but he was on one leg.
You have Seth, who is hurt, right? So you're not going to see him in there. Like you can't have that many belts not routinely being
I
like
think Seth
held.
makes Mania, but how good the
Oh, he
match
will.
is, he's going to be he's going to be limited. But again, Seth is one of my absolute favorites in the business. I think he's still going to put on a great match. The promo with Cody, I hope Cody doesn't. I hope Cody goes for Roman and not for
Cody,
Seth.
no, Cody will go for Roman. It would be a misstep going with Seth as far as Cody goes. Um, because I mean the whole thing. I got to finish the story. It's like, well, you're finished. If you go after Seth, you're finishing a story with a belt that didn't exist when you first got
Yeah.
there, right? Just it's all planned out, right? Like these are,
Well,
tell the story that
typically in WWE, when you look at their run, and at least under Vince, he would have WrestleMania more or less figured out somewhere from SummerSlam to Survivor Series. He would know at least the top 3 to 5 programs he
he
was
would have
looking at for Mania.
he would have a working,
Yeah,
yeah, a working plan going forward, and you have to.
that
You have
working
to.
plan, you have to have that, but that working plan, you can just crumble that up and throw it out the window with all the injuries
Yeah,
and the scandals.
yeah. But I mean, you have that too. It's like, okay, here's the main plan I'm going with. Now, if this happens to you, who am I putting in your place? But you have to build those people up along the way.
Yes,
You can't, you can't just have them
you have to have a
wrestling.
contingency plan. If
Yeah,
so and so gets hurt in this program, we've got if
X,
X
Y,
and
and
Y
Z.
fails, we've got Z that we can
Yeah.
bump up.
4-minute matches don't do that, by the way.
No,
Yeah, you have to get them in there. You have to showcase them so people know what they can do and people get invested in them. So if you do have to slot them in, it's seamless. You just put them in, right?
this could be a really good, surprisingly good Mania, or it could be just
It it
holy shit, that was not good.
it could take them in a direction, product wise, anyway. The other stuff is it's not going to fix any of that, but product wise, it could take them in a direction where the product improves. If the product improves,
Hmm.
then what happened with Jordan as far as the TNA
Hmm.
and it's not a partnership as of yet. It's one match, right? For the people saying, "Oh, look, they didn't work," but it's one match. They did it with Mickey James. Nothing came of it. Charlie Dempsey went over to All Japan Pro Wrestling. I haven't heard anything going forward on that. So it's a wait and see as to how that this is going to play out with what WWE is doing with other promotions.
Well, again, to do a
And
historical comparison, you could have a situation where WrestleMania 40 has maybe one or two good matches and the rest is dog shit and
good, yeah.
is just sort of a forgotten mania. And then next year, once they
But
maybe kind of get their shit together, 41 could be like 14, just flip the numbers there, and
well,
you get what could
well, the,
be a cornerstone
well, the
mania.
plan. Well, here's one example. The plan was Gunther and Brock. Right? People were
That
calling
ain't
for it.
happening.
Not happening now, right? Andrade signed with Raw.
Mm-hmm.
That would interest me. I know what Andrade can do in the ring. This man is a top guy between those ropes.
What if
We
you
all
took
know
a
what
page
Gunther
out of the
can do.
WrestleMania 6 playbook and you put Gunther versus Seth title for title? Sort of like they did Warrior Hogan IC title, world title. You do a title for title night one, Gunther and Seth. Night two is Cody and Roman. You do a title for title night one, Gunther versus Seth.
Right.
That to me,
The only thing with that is Gunther's already made. Seth is made. Cody is made. Roman is made. Andrade's not. You build a guy.
no, I'm not saying you don't give Andrade
No,
a
like that's what
match.
I
I'm
would
not saying you don't do that,
like. That's what
but
I would do.
Seth has to take some time off. He's
Does yeah?
beat up. He's banged up.
He
And
has
who
to get off
better
that
to
belt.
put that title on than Gunther? He gets that belt. He relinquishes the Intercontinental title, and that
Gunther
goes up in
Gunther
a
should be
tournament or a what have you.
Gunther should be beaten for that title because the person that beats him gets a major rub.
Under normal circumstances, yes. You're completely right, Davey. Under normal circumstances, yes. These are not normal circumstances with the amount of everything going on.
Well, just to circle back, different promotion, but Samoa Joe was TV champion for ROH for a long time. Long time. He relinquished that belt. It did nothing for anybody by doing it. I get why they did it because he was going after MJF and they couldn't have him losing. But relinquishing a title and not giving anyone a rub going forward does not help anybody.
It it does not help anyone short term.
Doesn't help long term either.
Well, long term, if you do say a like an old school 16 man, like we're talking a big ass cross, brand tournament, like a 16 man
C1.
thing,
A C1, essentially.
and
Like they
that
did.
that could be if you take you could build someone through a tournament like that.
You could.
It's not ideal. I'm
They
not
just
saying that would be my first choice,
they
but given
just
the
did it with
circumstances, that would be something okay, plan A ain't going to work. What's my best plan B I've got?
well and it's very doable because AEW just did that with the C1. Daniel
Yes.
Garcia won one match, but he got built through that tournament to the point people are saying 2024 he could be a world champion. That's how well it can be done,
Yes.
right? So it's
It
possible,
can be
but
done.
I wouldn't have Gunther just relinquish it. No. Braun is signed. Braun was put on SmackDown.
Why would you
Uh,
not put Braun in that tournament? And I mean,
well, Braun could be like Braun is not going to be going after the world title or
no,
Roman
put him
title,
in the
whichever one.
Intercontinental title tournament. If
Well,
Gunther beats Seth,
Braun, I would
relinquishes the Intercontinental, Braun could win that
Braun
16 man double elimination, what have you. And
Braun, I would if they're bringing him up and they want to give him a big push. Logan Paul.
well, I mean, the Intercontinental and the U.S. title are, two sides of this. They're basically the same title, just different ends of the spectrum. I mean, one is one
Well,
company, one is the other.
well,
It's it's the
Gunther,
upper echelon
Gunther,
mid card
Gun,
title.
yeah, Gunther elevated that belt to great heights.
Yes,
They weren't
phenomenally.
they weren't doing much with it before, right? Because Austin Theory's run was, for the most part, forgettable, right? But Gunther brought that title back. Uh, Braun is no ring technician by any means, right? He's pretty basic in the ring, but he's very explosive, and he's working his character really, really well. You get the belt on him, you got a champion there that people will get behind because people want to get behind him, right? That fixes that problem. I believe Trick is facing Dragunov for the NXT title. If Dragunov drops that belt, that's another option for Gunther. They have a long history,
Yes.
and that is a match of the year contender, not only in WWE. That is a match of the year contender across the board. That's how good those two are.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
if I had not thought about Dragunov, but if you did Dragunov versus Gunther at Mania for the Intercontinental title, there, that's a potential show stealing match.
Yeah. So there's
So that,
a few ways they can go. Dragunov is 30, so he's got lots of years left, right? So that's another guy you can add to the mix. Trick is another guy. Trick will be over as fuck on that main
I
roster.
like Trick, but Dragunov is
Yeah, Dragunov
he's a
is
different level above Trick.
like I got here's how much I think of those two gentlemen, talent wise.
All right.
I right? No particular order, right? Okada, Omega, Danielson, Gunther, Dragunov, Osprey. Those are the six, right? Like you put them in there with anybody, they are going to elevate whoever they are in there with.
You said you had Dragunov 5 in that.
No particular
Oh,
order,
oh, no particular order.
because I mean it'll shift. I mean
Okay.
Omega's out
Okay.
right now, and we don't know when he's coming back. But I mean, but those guys, like if you put, if you watch their career, the the the, the work that Dragunov did with Carmelo Hayes, that is the best education he could have ever gotten,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't know Hayes had that in him, right?
Oh, I love Carmel. I knew he had
But
that in him and more.
no,
But
but
also, when you have a great dance partner like Dragunov,
yeah,
it's
but
gonna.
he
It's like
elevated
Ford
his game to
Steamboat. You
great
know, they
heights.
bring out the best in each other.
Yeah. Like
Not comparing those two to those guys, but when you have the perfect foil for your style, it brings out the best in both participants.
Danielson did it with Starks. Like I knew Starks was good, but I didn't think it's like, okay, can you hang with you know one of the best, not only now but to ever do it, and he did. Um, and,
The reason I was asking for the ranking, I do love Dragunov. I would be tempted to flip Osprey and Dragunov, and I'm
uh,
not even. I'm an old
Os-
school guy. I'm not the biggest. I know the aerial assassin,
he's not
but
he's not the flippy guy now. He's much more
well, I mean,
basic.
even withstanding that, uh, Will Osprey is if I'm thinking, okay, if I'm booking a promotion of territory and I get, okay, I can have any two guys I want for the future of my business. Give me MJF and give me Osprey, and I will figure out the rest. Give me those two guys, and I'll work the rest out. I'll figure it out. But if I have those two guys, holy shit.
And there's a few, like Jay White would be another one. Jay White doesn't have in ring. He's different. Like he's a unique animal.
He
Like
is different, but God, he's such a good promo.
he's a great promo. He can sell like at such a top tier level. It's insane, and the ring psychology that he has is just he knows
Yeah.
where to be, when to be, how to
It's
do it.
eerily similar to Jake Roberts.
Yeah, he does
Think,
have.
think, think about Jake's prime peak career. Jake was
Yeah,
always an awesome promo, but you watch his matches at his peak, say 80, let's just say 87 to was say 87-91, that 4 year run. Jake just had that ring psychology like Jay White does.
yeah, and they got a similar build. They're tall and they're lanky, and the Jay kind of slithers around a bit in the ring, right? You can't
Yeah.
fucking trust him as far as you
Well,
can
we
throw him.
were
So
having
that's
this
another
discussion.
similarity. And he's only
Me, Maddie,
31.
and Dev. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night. We were having a discussion about this, and was going back to the old adage. Okay, you can be a great worker and be a horrible promo, still have a damn fine career. You can be a
Like,
decent, just passable worker, a great promo, and still have a really great career. You have those rare birds that are great promos, great in-ring workers. Your Steve Austins, your Ric Flairs, Undertaker, Shawn. The upper tier, cream of the crop. Top 10.
if
All
you get
time.
if you get those two things working in concert with each other at a top tier level, that's what pushes you. That's what gets you to that elite
Yes.
elite.
And when
Osprey,
I'm
when he
looking at the
first
future,
started
that's
out,
what I say. Osprey and MJF are the two young guys that have that. And thanks to Maddie, I will say this: Jordan Oliver, kid, you got my eye. Um,
Jordan Oliver has a lot of potential. Yeah, he's not
that
there yet.
kid, that kid's got.
He gets to push
It's like
himself.
that old saying, you don't know what it is, but when you see it, you know it. Like Jim Cornette famous said that about Glenn Jacobs, Kane. He said, "I don't know what it is. No one knows what it is, but when you see it, you know it." He had that same thing about Glenn Jacobs. I felt the same way about Nick Wayne. Felt the same way about Jordan Oliver, uh, Will
Nick Wayne,
Ospreay, MJF, and I have things that I can nitpick little bits of. I could pick that shit out of pepper on a bunch of those guys, but I'm not going to do that because everything else is so good. I can get past the little bitty. Oh well, this kid's young. He needs some mentoring. This guy's a little bit reckless. He needs some.
oh,
I
and
can
some of
throw
these,
that out.
and
They've got it.
some of these guys that we mentioned on the other side of the scale, they are young, right? Like um, like Nick Wayne, right? In 10 years, Nick Wayne
He's
will be
19 years old.
yeah he'll be 29. He'll still in 10 years he'll still be younger than what Osprey is now,
Yeah.
right? What and I see this online occasionally. Oh, they're not using them. They're not wrestling. Nick Wayne wrestles, right? You just don't see it because he's doing it in places like GCW and Defy, right? He's still out wrestling. He had a match with Leo Rush there a couple weeks ago. Excellent, right? So he's out learning the trade, right? Like people say
Yes.
AEW needs a performance center. Well, that is their performance center, right?
Yeah. Well, that is one
GCW and your
one one
Defy
thing
and
to
your
give
Rev
some
Pro.
credit to Tony Khan, and I wish WWE would follow that, where they work with other promotions, independent,
That's
minor
how you learn.
league, what have yous,
That's how you learn,
using
and
that
that's how you've
as
always
a
learned.
training ground.
Yeah, because you pick up, and people will say, "Oh, they're going to pick up bad habits." It's like, no, they're going to learn, right? They're
Yeah.
going to turn into a more well-rounded performer.
Think about
You
the best wrestlers and the best bookers of all time. What did they do? They worked umpteen territories. They learned under umpteen regional world champions. They worked under umpteen bookers. Pat Patterson worked so many
yeah,
territories.
up and down the road, up and down the road,
Yeah.
and
Ric Flair. Yeah.
that's how Tony has his set up. We're going to see a woman come back into AEW very shortly. I don't know exactly when yet, but
You mentioned this on Sunday, I believe.
Megan Bain.
Yes.
Megan Bain is a very athletic, polished in the ring China.
Well, those are
Like,
three things China was not. No,
right.
no, no disrespect to the deceased. You
But
know,
he, last spring, he sent her off to Stardom. And she's been there, like I said, since she worked 3 quarters of the year there. And she got to work with, if you're in Stardom, you are
yes.
working with the best women professional wrestlers on the planet, bar none. Nobody compares it, right? That's a perform like that's where like when he does a performance center, go to Stardom, go
Well, again,
learn.
I think that goes back to the Vince way of, pal, we'll just do it all in house. We'll train them the WWE way. No, get them to work in different, I almost said territories, different promotions. Get them to work across the country, across the globe. Like right now, Jordan Oliver's working, I think, 3 straight months in Europe, different countries. I mean, the wealth of knowledge that you're going to gain doing that. And back in the old days, it took, and I'm
So Jordan Oliver.
coagulating this from multiple interviews and
So Jordan
sources here, but
Oliver is 24 years old.
yeah.
So he's still
But
just a kid.
from what I have gathered from the old days, the territory days, it took a prospect, a guy, whatever, roughly 2 to 4 years, depending on how quick they picked it up, obviously, barring injury, roughly 2 to 4 years of working different territories, getting seasoned, getting, all that knowledge before they would be ready for a territory to, okay, we're gonna push you. Like it took roughly 2 to 4 years of them bouncing around, getting that kind of seasoning and knowledge before a promotion would be ready to say, okay, you're not a curtain jerker. You're gonna be, in the upper level of the card, and we'll go from, like you're gonna be one of our featured guys, and we're gonna push you, see what happens. Nothing could happen, but they would generally say 2 to 4 years of whatever.
Jordan Oliver in the year 2023 worked 47 different promotions across the
Yes,
globe.
he is a road dog.
That's how you learn, folks. Billy Starks. Billy Starks was one of the hardest working female wrestlers over the last 2 years. Like she has upwards of around 270 matches under her belt. She's 18. She just graduated high school in the summer. Like, and I followed Billy along. I remember when she first started. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
you
there's
and
prom
Maddie both
there's
big
promise
proponents of
there,
her.
right? But I got to see her progress along. It's like, okay, I can see you putting it together, right? And that match with Athena, that that match with Athena opened Tony's eyes. It's like, okay, let's see what I got here on the women's roster. Got a lot of young 20 somethings that have been now wrestling for the last 3 or 4 years, right? And they're starting to all put it together all at the same time. So I think that's why we're seeing a bit of a boom now in the women's division in that promotion, right? Because the women are putting it together. You can't throw them out there if they're not ready. It won't work, regardless of promotion. Like they got to get the reps in. They got to do the work, right? Um, Hook is another one. Hook needs more reps, but he's solid. Like fundamentally in the ring, he's solid,
Yes.
right? Like he's putting it together. He's more of a Daniel Garcia, right? He needs more of a character work to catch up to his in-ring work, right? Same thing Daniel Garcia needed. He was always good in the ring, right? But that time with Jericho, who gets shit on fucking constantly, that but that helped him immensely. Like who's better over the last 30 years, developing characters than him, right? That's a nice learning tree to be under, for a bit of a time, right? So and it worked. Just got to be patient, folks. Things don't happen
Well, to
You know,
touch on
overnight.
and to kind of put a kibosh on the wrestling because it was a pretty busy week in wrestling uh, since we were last on here. You had Bailey winning the women's rumble, which I think was a great call. Uh,
It was a
you
great
had
call, and it was a smart call because it
yeah.
played into the story they're telling. Right? You don't need a swerve if a swerve is not needed, not AEW swerve. You know,
Well, yeah, Bailey winning was great. The fatal four way was on the card. I was like, I never thought I would see the day where the world title match on a Rumble card was the throwaway match. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
I didn't watch it for personal reasons, but um, it's
well,
the same
fair
thing.
fair enough,
It,
fair
it
enough.
it's the same thing, right? Decent match throughout, right? The ending, interference, overbooked a little bit. Roman retains. It's a rinse and repeat formula.
It has become a rinse, and as Seth alluded to in his promo with Cody on Monday,
I
um,
did I did catch a clip of that. That was a very good promo by Seth. Seth
Logan
can
and KO, I enjoyed that match. I really I loved the finish as a finish. Not so much maybe in that match, but I loved the finish. Uh, we got a question on that. It was either I think it was Sunday during the championship games. We got a question about that. We didn't address it, but yes, I love the finish, just not in that match. Men's Rumble,
there was no
not as
chance
good as the
Logan was
women's Rumble,
there
but
was no chance Logan was dropping that belt though.
no.
It was his first
Uh,
defense. So
but I liked the men's Rumble not as much as the women's. I liked the finish of the men's Rumble. I liked that once it got down to Seth and Punk, despite Punk having a torn tricep, that they still gave it time. These are the two last guys. They're gonna go at it. And Cody winning, and he pointed up to Roman. I liked the finish of the men's rumble saved the actual match itself for me. It's
yeah.
like okay, the first 40.
The winner of the Rumble, I picked Dwayne, but I don't really have what's the term? A dog in that fight at the moment. But
Yeah.
Cody made sense, right? Have him go out, just have him fucking win at Mania. Like, move forward, stop spinning your wheels, right?
Well, we know.
Fuck Hogan and the record. You don't need it. Like,
I don't think I just
it's not necessary. It's not necessary.
I hope you're right.
You know,
Uh,
if they're trying to, if the goal was to rewrite history, right, and eliminate Hogan from the record, from the
well, you're still going to have San Martino. You're still going to have Backlund.
you wouldn't have had him on Raw a couple of weeks ago. So that gives me a glimmer of hope that they're actually going to pull the trigger on Cody.
I hope they do. I was hoping they would last year, but see, here's the thing, and again, this is one thing that of many that I hate about WWE is they like to not only rewrite history but rewrite their own history at times. Like, okay, yeah, Roman right now is the fourth longest reigning champion. You got Roman, Hogan, Backlund, Sammartino. Uh, and if they keep the belt on Roman long enough to pass all of those guys,
That
it's like,
won't
come on,
happen. Some people
you're
will be fine with it. Like
some would. I'm
they
not
just
one of them.
keep the belt on Roman until he retires and goes to Hollywood, and just have him vacate so he doesn't have to lose it. Like, that's horrible. I'm sorry for those that think that way. Like,
Lame.
you gotta, you know every story has a time frame in which to tell it. They've long past gone past that. You know, like, this is
Well,
not a 3 year and three-quarter story they're telling. I'm sorry.
to transition a little bit to some baseball news, to answer a question you posted on the Raw Ball Twitter page, what's going to
Yep.
happen to Justin Turner? He's a Toronto Blue Jay.
We found that out quite quickly.
1 year deal, $13 million, which includes, if I'm reading this correctly, $1.5 million in incentives, bonuses.
Yeah,
Uh, I think that's a good landing spot for
I
Turner.
I think
He's
that was an excellent landing spot for not only him but the team. This guy gets on base a lot,
yes.
right? Like his on base percentage last year was 345 and his career is 363.
So he's not quite at his career
No, but
level,
he's
but
right.
he's still, if you're still getting on base 3 out of 10 times, you're doing something right. And he's doing almost 3.5 out of 10.
Yeah, like you could slot him in, and he's still producing. And this was in Boston last year. Like he had 96 RBIs, right? That's good. It's 276 average, 23 home runs, 154 hits. His OPS plus was 114. League average is 100. So he's an above average player. And the guy is what? He's not a spring chicken by any means. He's 39, right? But he can still
Right.
hit, right? But in that lineup, because that lineup has holes,
Yes.
right? Like it's not the pitching staff is good. I think they can still use another arm, but the pitching staff for the most part is good. They got Barrios, they got Kevin Gosman, Bassett, Kikuchi had a bit of Kikuchi for the year he had last year. If he's your fourth starter, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Just get a dependable arm to slot into your five spot, and away you go. They re-signed Romano, which was good, so they got the back end taken care of. But Turner, Toronto right now doesn't really have a second baseman that you're going to trot out there every day. You got Biggio, you got Espinal. Do you feel you're going to contend with those two guys at second base all year? You have no third
Um,
base. You have no third baseman. None.
yeah.
None. Chapman's gone, and for the money Chapman wants, it would. I don't think they're bringing him back if he would want to go back. But he has yet to sign. But Turner can slot into second. He'll likely slot into third. He can spell Guerrero at first. So if Guerrero wants the DH for a day, you slot Turner in there, give Vladdy a little rest. He got experience. He's won, right? He just came from an organization that wins a lot in the Dodgers, so he has postseason experience. There's no downside to that signing that I can see. So good pickup by them.
A two-pronged discussion I do want to bring up. We did see a big trade, and by big I mean multiple players this last
The
week in sports. The Mariners and the Twins. Um, I'm reading this straight off ESPN here. The Seattle Mariners and Minnesota Twins swung a five-player trade Monday, with second baseman Jorge Polanco going to Seattle for outfield prospect Gabriel Gonzalez, reliever Justin Topa, starter Anthony Desclafani, and minor league pitcher Darren Bowen. The Mariners are also giving the Twins cash considerations. Both teams announced the deal last night. The reason I want to bring this up, number one, obviously your thoughts on this trade here, but number two, because we've been having this in our private message board, the Mariners are still interested in my White Sox Dylan Cease. Uh, are they still interested at this point with
uh,
the pitching
it'll depend.
prospects,
It
players
would
they got, or are they still? You think they're still hammering hard for Cease?
it would. I mean, it would depend on what Chicago values sees at, right? Like how much are you willing to give up, right? Asking prices may be too high for what he's done, especially last year. He slipped a bit last year across the board.
Well, I've never been a
Um,
big fan of Cease in any way because Cease is he allows too many guys to get on. He's a fireballer. He's got great strikeouts. You know, but he just his ERA and his WHIP are just way too high for me. He's
his WHIP last year was 1.41. That's
yeah,
about that to be an an elite pitcher. That's about point.
2 points too high.
Yeah, it's about 0.35 too much. Right, you can't be letting that many people on. Strikes out a lot. 214 in
Yeah, he gets a lot of
177 innings,
strikeouts.
but ERA was 4.58. Right, that's
Yeah,
you know a one-trick pony
he's
is not a top
he's what I
pitcher.
call a coin toss pitcher. He's either going to go out there and have a great day, or he's going to go out there and he's going to get battered to shit. He's going to get lit up like a pinball machine. And I don't like pitchers on my staff. Me being a White Sox fan, I don't like guys who are a coin flip. Eh, I want guys we can depend on that are going to give us either great or good games, and we don't have to worry about them having shitty games that often.
Now in Chicago, he was your top of the rotation guy. If he goes to Seattle, he's not.
That's the best we can do, folks.
Best we can do. But Seattle, he's not. He slots down further in the rotation, right? Now, I don't know if that would have any effect on what he's doing because his career numbers they're unfortunately fairly consistent. Like his career whip is 1.3.
There's not a lot. Now, I mean, again, this is baseball. Anything can happen. Guys can turn it around. Guys can get that pitching guru, that voice in their ear. They can get that pitching coach that, adds a pitch, takes a pitch away. They can get that catcher that they just, this is baseball. Anything can happen. We've seen it happen throughout the entire history of the game. But the
Gentlemen, that we
numbers,
just
as Davey pointed out on Dylan Cease, if we
well,
if we traded him, as long as we got a decent, 2, 3 prospects for him or something like that, I'm fine.
we're not going to win with him,
No, because we have,
so you might as well get something for him, right? But but like you said, sometimes it's just a matter of the right player being in the right situation with the right people. Because we've seen it with Toronto has done wonders with a couple of guys. Robbie Ray being one. When he went to Toronto, his numbers
yeah.
were phenomenal. He got hurt last year, and now he's over in San Francisco because Seattle, for some reason, wanted Mitch Haniger back and Descalafani, who they flipped in that trade. But another guy in Toronto is Kevin Gosman,
Yep.
right? Like he was a Cy Young candidate last year. Like he had excellent numbers across the board. They can't figure out
Well,
Alex
also
Noah.
San Francisco is a weird park to pitch in because they've got that weird middle center weird
Yeah,
center right field, what they call Triples Alley in San
it's an odd
Francisco's park.
configuration. That
Yeah, it's a weird park to pitch in because you've got, you've got, say, like, Fenway that has a short porch in right field. You've got Yankee Stadium that has a short porch in left field. Different stadiums with these different configurations, it makes it difficult, depending whether you're left-handed, right-handed. San Francisco is weird because it's not to the poles; it's sort of to that little, it's that nook.
yeah.
Uh,
Now Seattle's pitching staff: Luis Castillo, Logan
yeah,
Gilbert, George Kirby, Descalafani's gone.
I mean, I like those
Brian
first three guys. I mean, that's
Brian Wu and
I
Bryce
don't love any
Miller.
of them, but I
Which
like those three guys.
I like Bryce Miller. I think he can have a good season. And Wu, if that's your top five, if that's your starting five going into 2024, you have a very good rotation. What they're
You,
doing with
you,
the rest of what they got going on, they got a lot of players in the infield they can move around though. Like if you look at like a Ty France, he can play first and third.
yep,
They picked up Mitch Garver was another good pickup that they got. Luke Rayleigh, he can play multiple positions. They got Luis Urias,
yep.
Josh Rojas. Right? and Polanco can play short or second. So they kind of set themselves up where it's almost Tampa Bay-ish. You know, plug and play. I'm going to put you here. I'm going to put you here. I'm going to put you over there. But it can all work, right? Because all these guys can do that. You can move them around. So your
I
matchup.
do like Urias, just from a fan's point of view. I do like Luis. Another story: World Series MVP Corey Seager had surgery Tuesday for a left sports hernia repair and
It,
will miss most of spring training. Though Rangers are hopeful he will be ready for opening day. Um,
Opening day is what 58 days away, so I think you'll be.
March
I think you'll be
28th,
fine.
I believe, is opening day. And again, it's a 162 game season. If he's there opening day, great. If he's not, whoop-de frickin' do.
Yeah,
But
better
Seager,
better to get that taken care of now,
yes,
right, than in a month's time, because now you are missing a month of the season, right? So
yeah.
I don't think that'll
If
affect
if
Texas one way or the other.
if this isn't completely healed or he misses a bulk of, say, the regular, if there's a flare up, what have you, this could be, something to look at for Texas.
They also
Angels and
picked up.
outfielder Aaron Hicks agreed a deal. Yankees on hook for $19 million.
I think that's kind of a depth piece, if anything. Fourth
Hicks is
outfielder.
still under the 7-year, $70 million contract he originally signed with the Yankees, which extends through the 2025 season. The deal pays Hicks $9.5 million this year, $9.5 million next year, and $1 million buyout for a club option in 2026. Uh, Aaron Hicks, I mean, he's one of those guys that always gets mentioned, and it's like, is anything going to happen? Because everyone keeps talking about the guy. He's been one of the more talked about guys, up and coming guys in the Yankee system, and then they didn't do much with him. They mishandled him. They deal him off to the Angels. And is there a worse spot to land than the Angels? I mean, for the love of God, the Angels are so pathetic.
And I don't really know what to make of the Angels as to their thought process. Like, do they think that they are a contending team? Because if they are, or if that is their thought process, they're kind of delusional in that. Um, with Hicks, though, I mean, I think he's one of those guys. Oh, the potential, right? You've heard that throughout the years. He's 34 now.
Yeah.
So he will likely end up as probably trade bait at the deadline to some contender that looking for some outfield depth would be my guess. Career OPS of 719 with an OPS of plus of 97. For those unfamiliar with
Not great,
OPS
not
plus,
terrible.
well, league
I
average
mean,
is 100, so he's just
yeah,
a
I
little bit
mean,
below average.
well, I mean, I was looking. I'm as much of a stat nerd as I am the plus OPS. I'm I'm not as familiar with as I am with just regular OPS. Whenever I see, if I see an OPS somewhere around 725, 750, like, okay, you can do something. The plus OPS,
It's adjusted to
I'm
the player's
I'm
ball.
I'm a slow adopter of it. It's not that I don't discount it at all.
It's it's a
I just
stat
don't
that
understand it as much.
it's a stat that would be adjusted to the player's ballparks. So
Okay.
your surroundings come into play with it, right? But it's just another tool to use in evaluating players, especially for if you're into the fantasies. But I think that's all Aaron Hicks is there because I mean it's Anaheim or California or the Anaheim Angels of whatever they're calling themselves are a fourth place team in that division.
Out of 5.
And the only reason they're a fourth place team is because Oakland is in that division. If there was any other team, they would
I'm almost
easily
ashamed to
contend
have
for
an
the.
Oakland hat over on over on my bookcase. It was a gift from a friend because he knew I loved the movie Moneyball, and he got it for me as a Christmas gift. But
Story franchise though, like they had a lot of
well,
they had a lot of
incredibly
good
storied
years,
franchise.
but they got to get out of Dodge, like it's time, right? The stadium is fucking horrible. Apparently, nobody goes, So I mean, it's hard to create any kind of revenue under those circumstances. And if you're not creating revenue, then it's hard to create payroll. And if you can't create payroll, then you can't get players. There's your ripple effect there.
Yeah.
So the move to Vegas could be a boom for that franchise. People will go see them in Vegas. It's a very transitory town, right? It's
Well, I
it's,
mean,
it's
the
tourism.
Vegas Knights proved that you can
Yeah,
move a team there, or like they were an expansion team, but
yeah, and
uh,
it's a different. And I had this in our hockey chat on our Twitter page. Somebody had mentioned that exact thing about the Vegas Knights and how quickly they took off. It's a different setup in the NHL for an expansion team. You get to draft unprotected players from the other teams. So if you
yeah.
draft well at that, and plus your amateur draft, you can get out of the gate pretty fast, right? It's not like years ago. You were picking bottom of the barrel stuff, like when Ottawa and San Jose came in. Those were some pretty lean years when they first get on the scene. But Oakland won't have that, right? They're an established team, so they won't like they'll have to do this all themselves. But the move will help them. I don't see how it won't. So
One story that I do want to get into before we get into the NFL goings on from this last weekend, a story that, as a baseball fan, baseball fanatic, baseball historian, I've often said baseball is my first love in life. I've even said that at one point baseball saved my life, and I'll save that story for another day, another time. Uh, but a stolen bronze statue of Jackie Robinson was found burning in a trash can in Wichita, Kansas. Uh, this was, I believe, last night or early this morning. The state of the statue was, quote, not salvageable, according to the police spokesperson. Um, The statue, which was cut at the figure's ankles, went missing Thursday morning. It honors the first player to break the major color barrier. I've often said Jackie Robinson is the most important athlete of the 20th century, arguably in sports, next to Muhammad Ali. Um,
I would
I gotta,
agree with
I
all
gotta, I
that.
gotta control myself here on this one. Uh, this is a quote from Bob Lutz, executive director of the Little League nonprofit that commissioned the sculpture. Quote: If it turns out it was racially motivated, then obviously that is a deeper societal issue, and it certainly would make this a much more concerning theft. We'll wait and see what this turns out to be. I would like to just, as I just said, Jackie Robinson, most important athlete of the 20th century, next to Muhammad Ali. Uh, if this is racially motivated, to the scumbags who did this, um, all I can say is
There's
I
no
hope
place.
the
There's no
legal
place.
system gives you your comeuppance, uh, because I don't, because you do not understand what you are defaming here. You're not just defaming bronze. You're not just defaming a statue. You are defaming a century of athletes who were allowed to play Major League Baseball, professional basketball, professional football, professional sports in this country. And it all happened uh, because Jackie Robinson, who was a standout athlete at USC, and then was noticed by a very progressive, forward-thinking general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers who said, "You know what? We're going to uh, abandon this so-called gentleman's agreement that prohibited anyone but a white guy from playing baseball." His name was Branch Rickey, and he's one of the very few guys who arguably changed sports and baseball three times. When he was GM for St. Louis, he was the guy who came up with spring training. When he was the GM for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he brought in Jackie Robinson from their minor league Toronto team to break the color barrier. When he was the GM for the Pittsburgh Pirates, he brought in uh, a Hispanic player to again break another barrier. This player went on to become a member of the 3,000 Hit Club. This player's name, oh, God, my memory's escaping me at this point. And I always, for some reason, I tend to blank on this guy's name. Uh, Roberto Clemente. I don't know why I always blank on such a beautiful name, but yes, Branch Rickey comes up with spring training, brings in Jackie Robinson, breaks the color barrier, brings in Roberto Clemente, breaks that South American Hispanic barrier. To whomever the scum are that did this to this statue, uh, learn from history. It would do you well. I could go off on a Jim Cornette level tirade, but I won't do that because I'm too nice of a guy. But while Cap relieves some ballast, I will let Davey comment on this. Uh, but yeah, reading this story really incensed me today, big time. Yeah, whoever did that,
Yeah, there's no place in today's society for actions like that. Like they serve no positive purpose whatsoever. Like people have to get their head out of their ass, doing things like this. It's like it serves no one. It just cultivates hate. Like why would you do that? So I'm in complete agreement with Captain here. Uh, I'm from Canada, and unfortunately, things like that exist up here too. So it's not just a United States issue, or you know hate of that nature. Unfortunately, knows no borders. So for the people that did it, I hope they're caught. And I hope they are held accountable to the full extent, of the law in whatever state that they're in. Um, but be better, to the people that did that, or the people that cheer those things on. Be better. Like there's no place for it, and there's no need of it. My 2 cents. Um, we do have some other baseball news. John Angelos has agreed to sell the Baltimore Orioles to David Rubenstein and Mike Orgetti, two private equity billionaires. So it looks like the Baltimore Orioles will be getting new ownership. Uh, that is another team that is very much on the rise in the American League East. So Angelos had that team for a long time, so I'm going to get Captain's take on that as well, to get his thoughts. Circle back on our wrestling talk there for just a moment. Um, NXT will be starting in approximately 11 minutes. So don't forget to tune into that if you are a wrestling fan, and I can give you the rundown on what's going on this evening. The Dusty Classic semifinals, the Trick Mellow Gang will be facing LWO. That will open the show. Heritage Cup, Von Wagner will face Noam Dar. Lola Vice versus Elektra Lopez. Roxanne Perez will take on Tatum Paxley. And Ilya Dragunov and Trick Williams, a face to face. Also planned for the show, Fallon Henley will face Ariana Grace, and Ridge Holland will take on Lexis King. I have spoilers here, but I don't do spoilers. So,
As far as the change in ownership on the Orioles, as long as they keep doing what they have been the last few years, that team is going to be just fine.
they have
Uh,
a they have an impeccable game plan in place. So I hope they stick to it.
they are doing incredibly well, and they still have more prospects in the pipeline, folks. What you saw last year, that ain't all they got.
No,
Uh,
no,
this is
this
turning
is
into a very well run farm system that, if they keep this up, is going to be the end. I've always said the two best organizations in baseball consistently have been, at least in my lifetime, have been Atlanta and St. Louis for developing players. Um, you could probably throw the Dodgers in there in the last decade and a half. But Baltimore, if they keep doing this, they are going to be
yeah,
a tough team to contend with.
yeah. They're going to be mentioned in that same breath. The Kimbrel signing is a little bit of a head scratcher, but where they lost a major part of their bullpen, they might have figured that they needed something. So,
Kimbrel is worth taking a
but they
dart
got
throw at.
well, they got that Yanir Cano sitting there. He had a good year last year. I know this because I had him on my fantasy team. It was one of the few things that actually worked throughout the year. Um, but I am sure between now and day 58, RAWBall will probably get together and have a Major League Baseball prediction show at some
Oh
point.
yeah.
Who's going to place where? Who's going to win what? Who's going to be your surprises? Who's going to be your unsurprises? Going the other way. I just thought of that, but I just assumed we were doing that.
Well, we did that last. I can't remember if you were on the prediction show or not.
Don't
I know
don't
you
believe
were. I know you missed the NFL prediction show. I can't remember if you were on the MLB prediction show.
I don't believe so.
Uh, but in any event, getting into the meat of the weekend, the NFL. Chiefs defeat the Ravens 17-10, advance to the Super Bowl. As you
The
can see
Ravens
from my hashtag,
the Ravens did not look good in this game.
you know how many times they had designed run plays? The number one rushing offense in the league. How many times they ran the ball? 8.
Yeah. Not a winning
Um,
formula. Can't do that.
this game was not ever out of reach for them. The Ravens shot themselves in the foot, then they shot themselves in the other foot, and then in Monty Python upper class twit of the year style, they shot themselves right tweenst the temples. The rate, and I'll get into this into the other. The Chiefs and the 49ers did not win these games. The Ravens and the Lions lost them.
Very much so. Very much so. So, and that's kind of telling going into this weekend.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean,
who, like Detroit should have won that game. Like the play calling on those we're not going to go for a field goal here. That lost it for them, right?
well, it was well
Plain and
to
simple.
just for the sake of continuity. uh, Chiefs Ravens. It was 7-0. Uh, I believe it was 7-0. Kelsey got that touchdown. Then it was 7-7. Then the Chiefs got a field goal and a touchdown. They didn't score the second half. They didn't score the entire second half. The Ravens scored 3 points the entire second half, 10 points the entire game. And the Chiefs were without their leading pass rusher for, I believe, at least half the game. If I remember, I forget how to pronounce the man's name. Amen Wahoo.
Yeah, I believe he's out for the Super Bowl too.
He tore his ACL.
Yeah.
He's done for
Yeah,
for a good
yeah, but
while.
the only points Baltimore put up after the first quarter was a field goal in the fourth. That's it.
And I know this is going to pain our wonderful friend Devin. And we'll get into the Lions and 49ers in just a second, but the Ravens, one of my favorite podcaster NFL commentators made this point today, or next, no, he made it yesterday. He was like, I was watching this game and I did not recognize this Ravens team, and that's kind of how I felt. I was like, I don't recognize this Ravens. Like, this is not the Ravens that I watched all year on RAWBall Goes Red Zone, watched in the divisional round. This is not the Ravens team that I watched all year. I don't know where the breakdown was between head coach Harbaugh and the offensive coordinator. I'm not sure what happened here.
And they were never down.
Something went hooey.
they were never down far enough. Right?
To have been no.
Like going into the half, they were down 17-7. So it was a 2-score game. That shouldn't negate running the ball, which you mentioned earlier. They didn't. Like your leading rusher was your quarterback. 8 rushes for 54 yards.
And he was their leading receiver at one point.
And on a and the drop tip after Jackson in the rushing department, Gus Edwards. 3. He ran the ball 3 times in 4 quarters for 20 yards. Right? If your opponent knows there's a pass coming, right, most of the time, they're going to prepare for it, and it's not going to work. Like Jackson was 20 of 37. That's a lot of passes for Lamar Jackson. Right? He was 272, right? TD and an interception. Most of those yards went to Zay Flowers. Everybody stopped dumping on Zay Flowers. The guy had 5 catches for 115 yards and a TD.
Well,
right? He got the ball.
He did have a bonehead
but
taunting penalty.
He did, yeah. But
and I remember clear as day, despite the amount of beer I was drinking. It was we were sitting down on the couch. It was me, it was Maddie, and it was Dev. And I saw that, and I said, "That's going to be taunting. You cannot do that. They're going to call that."
No, it was a
30 seconds, 45 seconds later, they called it. The flag came out.
It was a bonehead play made by a 23-year-old kid.
Yeah, bonehead play made by a 23-year-old kid. But and you saw how Lamar sort of kind of clutched his head, to his, and we can only imagine what was said. But you cannot do that shit.
So with Zay, it's like, okay, you fucked up, right? Now, are you going to learn from your fuck up? If you learn, right, then it was a learning experience, so you can turn it into a positive. But
let's look at another fuck up. That interception in the end zone. Isaiah Likely calling for the ball, saying, "Hey, I'm open. You're triple covered."
Yeah.
And for some reason, Lamar threw it.
Still thought it was a good idea to throw it there. Yeah. So, that was another fuck up. right?
Those were the two
And
plays, in my opinion, that cost him. Apart from there was a roughing the passer penalty on Mahomes, which Mahomes is going to get at least one of those a game. But those two
Lamar's not
penalties,
a
the Zay Flowers taunting and the interception in the end zone.
yeah, but
Ugh.
you don't make that pass, especially being in the league for as long as Lamar has. So, two fuck ups, right? Two.
Yeah.
They got to fix
Well,
their.
there's an old saying in life and in business, you can make a lot of little mistakes and still succeed, but you can only make so many big mistakes.
Yeah,
And those two mistakes, big.
they have to go out in the off season and they have to pick up somebody who is dependable, who does not have a history of being injured, and pay him money to be a running back on the Baltimore Ravens. So they have a go-to back. If they get a go-to back, because they don't have one now, Gus Edwards is not your go-to back.
Well, but they use Gus and Hill all year as sort of a two-headed thing, and it worked all year.
Yeah,
They only ran the ball 8 times, Davey. This wasn't a lack of confidence in player. This was a game script that it's like
but
Ed Wood.
but that
It's like they dug up Ed Wood, hooked 20,000 volts to his corpse, and brought him in to be offensive coordinator.
but if I was Baltimore, that's what I would look into. They got a tight end. They don't need that. They don't need that. They got a quarterback. They got a
Well, they got
coach.
they got Andrews and they got Isaiah
Yeah,
Likely, who filled in
yeah,
phenomenally
yeah.
in
So,
Andrews'
so,
absence.
so they don't have any problems there, right? Zay Flowers, right? Um, your two tight ends. I mean, they can kind of operate. One operates as like another wide receiver. Odell, I think, is kind of washed.
Yeah, Odell is what's left.
Aguilar, there's 1,000 Aguilars in the league, so
Yeah,
you know,
who
so
dropped a couple of balls, if I remember correctly.
one reception for 39. Pretty much the entire offense was Flowers at 5 catches for 115, then drops off to 39, which was Aguilar after that.
If I
Odell
remember
Beckham had
correctly, and Davey, educate me on this. It's either Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins. One of the two from the Bengals is going to be a free agent this offseason. That would be a get if
yep,
Baltimore could pull that off.
they would plug in there quite well. Yeah.
Have that combination with Zay, and you would and throw in Andrews or Likely, whoever's healthiest. That would be a good get.
Well, the Likely and Andrews setup is like the old Gronk Hernandez setup.
Yep.
I don't know if they're at that level, but it's a similar scheme, right? Okay, we got two of these. We're good.
We got
You
two of
know,
those.
tinker in the background. Get another wide receiver that you can trust outside of Flowers, and away you go. Right? It's not an overhaul in Baltimore. Let's not.
No, it's not an overhaul
No,
by any means. It's just
no.
okay, you were this
Then
close
yeah.
to defeating the Chiefs, but this close in that particular game felt like this. They felt so close yet so far away.
Yeah, I never got the impression that Baltimore was winning it, even though I wanted them to. So
Well,
that's not good, I guess.
another win for Cap. The second game, Lions 49ers. Everyone, and I'm flipping back to I have last week's predictions. Let's see here. Cap took the Chiefs. We had Ravens for Maddie and Davey. We had 49ers captain, Lions for Maddie. Oh my God, Cap was the only guy that called this.
You were.
Um, gosh, I don't know what to do here with my notes.
Your reasoning for calling it is not solid.
Oh, for Christ.
refs.
Even when I do something
Well,
good,
I'm just saying.
even
You know,
I
refs had nothing. The
I,
refs had
I,
nothing
can,
to
I
do.
can never
With it.
get I can never get it. I can never get the credit.
No,
Anyway,
no.
I was the only guy who took the Chiefs and the 49ers. Everyone else took Lions and Ravens. Um, so this game was a little bit more interesting. At one point, it was 24-7 Detroit. And you were on our stream Sunday, and I said, Davey, you remember what you said all year?
Hmm.
The Lions like to let people back in. This was a little bit before we went to halftime of
Yep.
that game.
Lo and behold,
Lo and behold,
both of them.
the 49ers defeat the Lions 34-31. Um, Obviously, two very big calls in this game that sort of not
Detroit,
quite told the story, but told enough of it.
Detroit did this to themselves.
Yes,
All the props to Brock Purdy, right? Like he had to move that ball, and he did. He did his part, right? But if Detroit had done their part,
Purdy was Purdy.
it's still right. Still wouldn't have worked. They still would have lost. They would have lost by if Detroit kicks those two field goals, assuming now they make them. You have to make them, but they were very makeable field goals. Right? Niners lose by 3.
24-7 at halftime.
Niners would have lost by 3 if they kicked those field goals.
Yes.
So
There's been a lot of reaction on this in the sports world. Everyone's been, giving it to Dan Campbell, as I would too in this instance. But Davey's kind of our Paul Heyman. He's kind of our wise man, because even though I'm the second oldest guy in the RAWBall group,
I'm the
Davey's the
I'm
oldest guy. He's, as much as
I'm,
I've seen, Davey's seen more.
I'm the
So
I'm the
give us
way
your
older
take.
guy. Well,
G-
look, I've never been a fan of this all season. I seen Jacksonville do it, and they lost, and they deserved to lose because it was a bonehead decision there. It was a bonehead decision here, right? Same thing. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
And
Did
you said Sunday night, take the points.
take the points. Um, Stat Boy Mike was on with us. It's like, no, go for it, go for it. It's like, no, you don't go for it, right?
Take the
Because
points.
if you don't take the points, you can't regroup and come back next week. Detroit is not coming back until September because of those decisions, right? You don't do that. Not in a game of this magnitude, right? Especially on a team that has as many weapons at their disposal on the offensive side of the ball that the Niners do. Like McCaffrey had 90 yards and 2 TD, right?
Could have had three. Remember,
They
he on that
and
the
they spread
Mitchell
the ball.
touchdown. McCaffrey got pulled down on his noggin and had to take a play off. So we could have had three McCaffrey touchdowns.
Yeah, and they spread the ball around through the air too. Like Samuel had 89, Ayuk had 68, McCaffrey had 42, Jerskowitz had 33, Kittle only had 27, so he wasn't targeted a lot. But it's a lot of weapons to go to, right? And Jerskowitz is not a top end guy, but he contributes. He does his part. Detroit has that. Detroit has all of that.
Well, I remember I was saying, as I was watching this with Stat Boy Mike, our good friend doing commentary, the first half, I was saying Detroit is absolutely wearing out San Francisco's front seven. They're not getting it in huge bursts, but they are battering and beating San Francisco's front seven.
Yeah.
And
And
then
remember, I
when we got
said
into the
Sunday.
second half, they just
Remember, I said Sunday about the running backs. God, they got they don't have the one. They don't have the monster that McCaffrey is, but
right,
Montgomery and Gibbs. That's as good of a 1-2 punch in the entirety of the NFL as you're going
absolutely.
to get.
They combined for over 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns this year,
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, Montgomery had 15 attempts for 93 and a TD. and McCaffrey had 20 attempts for 90 and 2 TDs, right? But you add Gibbs into that mix. Gibbs had 12 rushes for 45 in a TD. So that more than counterbalances whatever McCaffrey was doing. Purdy had 48 yards rushing, but that was mostly on one play.
Yeah, it was about 30, 25, 30 yards in that one break,
Yeah.
that breakaway he had.
Yeah, so that's a little misleading, though that stat. But if you look on the receiving side of the ball, I mean Laporta, St. Brown, Reynolds, Montgomery and Gibbs can catch the ball out of the backfield. Like they're very San Francisco like on the offensive side of the ball, right? It's just those two decisions cost them the game. Always take the points. Take the points. I don't know what else to tell you. They're Detroit fans, but that's why you are not in the Super Bowl this year. It's because of those two decisions, plain and simple. Because you played. Other than that, you played well enough to beat them.
It was, and again, this is why I love working with you, Davey. You, I feel like I'm sort of you, but I'm about 15 years behind you. You see these things coming about 90, 95%. I see them coming about maybe 60, 70%. I'm still learning, but you've said this all year, but I listened and I learned because
You and I have.
I'm that's what I like to be a sponge around people who know more than I do. It's like, okay, this guy knows a shitload more than you do. Learn from him,
Well,
and that was why I brought that up. It's like,
you and I have a commonality of being enamored with history.
yeah.
So if
Well,
you
I mean,
study history, you're going to see it again at some point.
well, I mean, yeah. I mean, you can see the library, and that's only 2 or 3 bookcases.
If you ignore history, you are doomed to repeat it.
As a wise man once said. Uh,
Or if you make up your own history, some instances, in some places,
some places you can get away with it,
then
but
then you work for the World Wrestling Federation.
in certain places you can make up your own history and get away with it. But I will add this to that, but only for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't have the other 2 members of our panel here, our normal, 4 panel. So I'm not going to write down and take an official RAWBall Super Bowl prediction until next Tuesday, because obviously, training injuries, things change with the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But looking at the Super Bowl as present, which will be the RAWBall 1 year anniversary stream coming up in 2 weeks from yesterday. It'll be 5:30 p.m. on this channel. 49ers versus Chiefs Super Bowl. The present line, as I'm looking on ESPN, is San Francisco -2 with an over under of 47.5. Oh, God. Davey,
What have we
I
got up
have
here
my
in the
thoughts
great?
on this, but I want yours first.
Well, up here in the Great White North, we have San Francisco favored to win. We
What's
have
the
an
line
over.
in Canada?
San Francisco is paying 2.19. Kansas City is paying 2.59. A tie, which is basically a field goal, 3.25 if you bet a tie. Over under on it as of right now is 47. 1.92 to go over, 1.88 to go under. So it's going to be a close game, as it should be. But just to get my pick out of the way here, I am going Niners on this. I think they're just a more complete team, top to bottom.
I'm not going to cement this as my final pick yet because I'm going to give it a week. We will get the rest of our panel back. But at present, I I think it's going to be the Chiefs. I
The poll that we're running on our Twitter account at RAWBall123. Go give us a follow, and if you're on our YouTube stream at the moment, please subscribe. We have San Francisco 52.9%, and Kansas City 47.1 currently. Quite a few days left to go on that poll. So if you see that, vote.
Do you think the over under on this is 47 and a half, which would 47 and a half divided by 2, that's, let's call it 24. So essentially right now they're calling this like a 23 to 20, 23, 20, somewhere in that range of outcome. Um,
I think it goes higher than that.
I'm glad we have 2 weeks for this. My initial gut instinct says Chiefs. They lost that pass rusher, which, as we all know, with Brock Purdy, less of a pass rush, the better he's going to be because when he's pressured, things go hooey. Right now, I'm leaning Chiefs, but oh Lord Almighty, it's just this is I think this is going to be a very close game, and I don't know why. If you were just asking me blind, if I woke up from a coma, if I had been asleep for the last year, and it was like, hey, Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl, who you got? Oh, Chiefs are going to crush them. They're just going to score all over them. That's without having watched any football this year. But the 49ers allowed probably, I would say, take the 31 that the Lions scored against the 49ers, cut that in half, and that's how many they actually should have scored. The 49ers should have only allowed 15, 16 points.
Chiefs do not have the same offense or weapons that Detroit had.
But their front seven shut down Baltimore's run game. Can they shut down? If they shut down McCaffrey, Brock Purdy is not going to win this game. I literally, it's to me, it's Kansas City's front seven versus San Francisco's offensive line, and it's going to be a game that's going to be won in the trenches. If San Francisco can run the ball, they can keep up. If Kansas City shuts them down, it's going to be a blowout. If San Francisco is able to run the ball and their defense can at least not, you're never going to silence Mahomes, but if they are able to contain him, then it could be a close game, but that's a lot of what ifs. I could see this being a gigantic blowout by Kansas City, or a close game won by Kansas City, or a close game won by San Francisco is not blowing Kansas City out. I will say that. San Francisco is not going to blow out Kansas City.
Oh no, this is not going to be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. I said it's going to be close, right? But like I said, I just think San Francisco has too many offensive weapons. You know, shutting down McCaffrey will be a monumental task. Like just looking at his stats for just this year, he didn't get shut down very often. You know, even when he was low on yards, he was still punching the ball into the end zone.
And I think, I look at, okay, two great head coaches. I would say Reed is, I love Shanahan. Reed is better. Mahomes obviously far better than Purdy. Kansas City's front seven, San Francisco. I just either San Francisco is going to win this thing close, or Kansas City is going to absolutely blow them out of the water. Those are the two things I'm leaning towards right now. I don't think Kansas City wins close. I think either Kansas City blows them out or San Francisco wins close. That's where my noggin is at right now.
And I'm just San Francisco by 3. I think it comes down that close. But contrary to all the people boycotting the Super Bowl for whatever fucking reason, I am quite excited about this. I think
Oh,
it's
I'm super excited. I think it's going to
I think the,
be. I think
that,
odds are it's going to be a really great game. I'm going to be celebrating with the RAWBall family. It's our 1 year anniversary. Going to try and get everybody on who wants to be on, and just enjoy the game because.
so we're doing
Uh,
like the Sammy Hagar Van Halen Invitational tour.
well, yeah, I mean, get everybody on who
Come
wants
on,
to be on because this is a 1 year celebration of what started as a crackpot idea between myself, Maddie, and Dev when Wrestle Buddy imploded. And it was like, why don't we just start our own thing and have
there,
fun doing what we do and see what happens? And here we are a
there,
year later and we're doing this. We're working on so many things that we haven't even announced yet that are going to make us even bigger.
to be
Uh,
fair,
to be
they're
fair,
to be fair, they are still alive and misinforming people daily. So props to them.
well, I actually I kind of thought about this today because Cap's a reminiscer. I kind of I'm a history. I kind of like to look back on things. I'm a history guy, and I look back on where we were with that organization, say 3 months before everything happened, and what we were working at, what we were doing, and then what happened in the intervening 3 months, and then what has happened in the last year. And it's like, you know what?
I
Everybody
remember
who every single rat who fled that ship made it to shore. And
I was
I
never involved in that particular um, organization or whatever you want to call it. But I do remember when I first seen it. It's like, okay, this is promising, right? And then I seen the direction it was going. It's like, okay, and I wasn't wrong.
no, you were not at all wrong. Um, I well, I mean that would be that's a whole different pot of
Yeah,
soup for a whole different Sunday for me to comment on that. Um,
but out of
I'm still very good on very good terms with the people who I enjoyed working with. Even one of them whom you are not so much, a fan of. Still on good terms with them despite our personal differences.
out out of one situation, greater situations are born. This
One
is
door
one of
closes, another door opens.
those situations.
I'm really glad that myself, Maddie, well, as far as RAWBall is concerned, I'm very happy that Maddie and myself bet on each other
Yeah,
and said, "Let's go for this." And I am not at all unhappy with the results. And Nick, Cy, Wrestling Legion, wish them all the best. But I could not be happier with the fact that Maddie and I bet on ourselves and like, let's do this. Screw it. What do we got to lose? Not a
yeah,
goddamn thing. And if we
right.
succeed, whoosh,
And a year later, here we all are.
and we have many other big things in the pipeline.
Even picked me up hitchhiking along the way.
I was like, hey, you know what? I don't like his sign, but I like his face.
Throw him in the trunk and see
Yeah.
if he's
Oh,
alive when we.
it's been phenomenal. I've loved
Is
having you
Davy
all the way with us,
is Davy
and
still
you've.
alive in the trunk when we get to the rest stop? Or
Well, it's not Goodfellas, like where we, stick you in the box because you asked me to go grab my shine box.
yeah,
But yeah, we got about 6 minutes left. Obviously, next week we'll have the rest of our panel. Super Bowl is in 2 weeks. Um, Davey, what is coming up this week as far as wrestling goes? And we mentioned things in the pipeline. We are working on setting up a hockey show
yeah.
for each and every one of you. That is in the pipeline, which we are hoping to debut once we get all the cosmic tumblers in place.
Yeah, we just have to get like a night in the format for it and that. So stay tuned. It's in the works. We won't put it out until it's you know ready and functional to go. Um, as for the wrestling, tomorrow night we have NXT on right now. So for those that were unaware or forgot, tune into NXT for some great action down there. Tomorrow night we have
Unaware or forgot,
AEW
tune
Dynamite.
into NXT. Go ahead.
Oh, get related feedback there. Yeah, tomorrow night is Dynamite. We have Jeff Hardy and John Moxley going at it. Interesting matchup. Hardy is on a bit of a redemption tour of sorts. Moxley may kill him, so see how that plays out. In a non-title match, we have Chris Jericho going up against Kyle Fletcher. This will lead to a Kensuke Takeshita match for Jericho at some point, which will follow up on their match from DDT wrestling over in Japan, which Jericho did go over on. So Takeshita will likely get his win back on a much bigger stage at some point. I'm hoping that's on Revolution. Singles match: Hangman Page going up against Toa Leona from the Gates of Agony. Taya Valkyrie going up against Diana Perazzo, or as Tony Storm calls her, Diana Palazzo. Taya and Diana have a long history together in the ring, so check that one out. That'll be good. Swerve Strickland has a mystery opponent that is going to be picked by Hangman Adam Page.
I thought it was sort of speaking the stipulation.
Nope, no, it's each guy picks the other guy's opponent. Swerve on Collision picked Toa Leona because Swerve has a connection to Gates of Agony. Toa Leona is watch him. He moves very. He reminds me of Ivar from WWE. He's a big guy, but he moves really well. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. The rumor is for Swerve RVD. That's a rumor. It's not confirmed. So
Okay.
don't RAWBall said don't do that. It's a rumor. Rampage has, as of right now, Top Flight, Dante Martin and Darius Martin go with Action Andretti going up against Private Party, who are back. Two great young teams. Like, watch them. Like, if you like high flying tag team action, watch them. SmackDown on Friday, along with the Rampage. Thursday, TNA Wrestling. Watch TNA. You will be glad you did. Like this, the rebirth of this organization and promotion has been phenomenal thus far. So check that out. They're on at the same time. ROH is also on Thursday. Make sure you check out ROH. They got a lot of good stuff going on down there too. No pay-per-views this week.
And actually, this weekend is I was telling to the guys Sunday. This will be the first weekend since August where we have no PLEs, no football games. We get to relax. Then we got the
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
and then well after that, everything pretty well kicks back into gear. as far as like what's going on wrestling wise, because
Yeah.
what's going to happen is on February 11th, New Japan really starts kicking back into gear because they usually start getting things set back up after Wrestle Kingdom. But on February 11th, that is going to be Will Ospreay's final dance with New Japan. So after that, he is free and clear for AEW. So he'll be debuting not too long after that. Also on that card, if you like the Wrestle Dream match between Brian Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., they are on this card. They're having a match. This will also be Okada's last go around with Tanahashi, as everybody knows, he is leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. His contract is up tomorrow. Right? There is no word on where he's signing. WWE and AEW are the front runners, obviously. So stay tuned for that as we get information on it. We'll have it on our Twitter page. So
And following the Super Bowl, we got the start of spring training. We've got the NHL All Star break, which we're hoping you and Stat Boy Mike can contribute on. Then we got the NFL draft coming up late in April. We have WrestleMania the first week of April. Also, the RAWBall or the Red Stitch Rotisserie Fantasy Baseball Draft and the RAWBall League on Yahoo
yep.
Fantasy Baseball Draft. And our
Uh,
big show, our biggest show of the year, the RAWBall Stream Against Suicide, where we bring on all the heavy hitters and do a stream on opening night of Major League Baseball and raise money for, in our opinion, the most notable, noteworthy, and best cause that there is. We've got some great guests lined up. Uh, we managed to raise $1,200 last year. Our goal this year is $2,000. Hopefully, we'll hit that, maybe even surpass it. But MLB opening night, the Raw Ball podcast stream against suicide for the 988 suicide hotline. Uh, that's kind of our Super Bowl. That's the big one for us. So as many viewers and donations as we can get for that. Details coming in time, but a lot of things going on in the
uh,
spring, and also March Madness, which we're gonna. We got into it a little bit last year. We're going to try and get into it a lot more this year. Uh, so
and I do have a correction on one thing. On the pay per view front, there is a pay per view this Sunday. uh, it's listed as an online stream, um, February 4th, which I believe is Sunday, if I'm not mistaken.
correct.
It is. This would be NXT Vengeance Day. That is airing this Sunday. Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker going up against the other winners of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic to get into the finals. I believe that's decided this evening. I'll see. I don't think that match would have happened yet. They're only 30 minutes into the show. The family going up against Out of the Mud, which would be Bronco Nima and Jada Parker and Lucian Price. We have Oba Femi, who has taken the NXT by storm. And he is the North American champion going up against Dragon Lee. Lyra Valkyria is going up against Roxanne Perez for the WWE NXT Women's title. And a gentleman whose name has been mentioned a few times on this broadcast, Ilya Dragunov, will defend his NXT title against Trick Williams. So that is this Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason I caught on to that because I was looking. We're on the final road, basically just a little over a month in Sting's career. This is it.
Yes.
This is it. This is it.
The final showdown at the Greensboro Coliseum.
And not tomorrow, right? 1 week from tomorrow on Dynamite. Big Bill and Ricky Starks will defend their AEW World Tag Team Championships against Darby Allin and Sting. So it is conceivable on March 3rd that Sting will walk in a World Tag Team Champion. I have no issues with this. If this is Sting's call. Like if he wants to go out as a champion,
Yeah.
it's like his call. I'm fine with whatever he wants, right? um, they will be facing the Bucks. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Uh, they will make him look like $1,000,000 in that match. Like, and the Bucks was his call too. He picked them. So also on that card in 2 weeks, Jericho is facing Takeshita. So you guys aren't pay-per-view free this weekend.
Oh,
So
there is
if
always something
if
going on in pro
if,
wrestling, and
if,
that's
if
part of the beauty of it. There is always something going on.
yeah.
We're about 5 minutes over. Uh, Anything else you want to plug, Davey, before we sign off here?
I think we got her all.
All right. Well,
Just
since
the minor.
Maddie is not here, I will remind each and every one of you of the present Raw Ball commandments. We're not doing the George Carlin countdown. We're still trying to build our 10, and then maybe we'll cut them down. Uh, Stay happy, stay healthy, stay hydrated. Don't get arrested. Don't get pulled over in the state of Kansas. Uh, Ball out with the Raw Ballers every single Tuesday. Many things going on, much planned for 2024. We love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for taking such a warm interest in what we do. And we will see you all a little further on down the road. For Davey, for the Cap, and for Maggie, who is wandering around somewhere in this office, take care. And we'll see you a little further on down the road.
Absolutely.